Alright, by the time this video is already published, Warzone Mobile should already be delisted, and I think a lot of you have already seen some YouTube videos regarding whether Warzone Mobile will be shut down. Well, the answer is no, it's just going to be delisted. When a game is shut down, it basically means you can access the content or the game itself. But a game being delisted means you can still access the game if you already have it on the device, which basically means new devices cannot download it. Alright, when we talk about Warzone Mobile, this was Activision's attempt at bringing the Warzone name to mobile devices, well, hence the name Warzone Mobile. Now, I think a lot of you, including myself, was really hyped for the game. I mean, like, come on, a pretty successful title, Warzone, on mobile. Why not? Right? The problem with that was that Warzone was built on a PC engine, IW9. And when I heard about it, I was kind of skeptical because I heard of the fact that cross progression might be a possibility. So what I initially thought was they just rebuilt Warzone on a different engine that works better with mobile devices, like for instance, Unity or Unreal. Because if I'm not mistaken, CODM does run on Unity. Alright, and when the game launched, many people definitely downloaded it, myself included, only for it to become the most uninstalled game in 24 hours. Now, why is that, right? This is actually a pretty simple reason why. Like I said earlier, because Warzone Mobile was actually built on the IW engine, it's just not built. That engine is just not built specifically for like mobile devices. And there were a lot of people who reported that they just couldn't play the game. It's either they literally couldn't download the game, or they could play it, but it overheated the phones so much that it literally turned into a toaster. Or they could play it, but it's so laggy and it was so unoptimized that even Apex Mobile would have laughed at its poor optimization. Now you need to consider this. Like mobile has more restrictions when it comes to performance as compared to their PC and console counterparts. And this is something that I think Activision has failed to understand. A vast majority of their players have low to mid-end devices, and I do think there are quite a few people who do run high-end devices. But such a high performance engine is not going to run well with these kinds of devices. Now, as much as you guys would want to laugh at games like Free Fire, or sometimes I do hear mockery towards PUBG Mobile, you do have to understand the reason why it is successful in mostly in regions like India or Brazil. It's primarily because it's well optimized. It's well optimized for these low to mid end devices, and I think this is also something that some big content creators of Warzone Mobile at that time, they did fail to understand too. But I'll get to them later. For now, I wanted to say this. I do wish the game was a lot more optimized, right? Because I really wanted to play it, right? I was kind of burnt out on CODM at the time, so was just grinding the ranks for a bit, and then I would eventually just stop the game for a bit. But I mean, if it can't even run well on the higher end devices, even some YouTubers who did have the higher end devices like iPads, they still couldn't run Warzone Mobile properly. So like, what's the point, right? It wasn't helping either that Activision did remove Alcatraz from CODM, which made a lot more people upset because they just saw it as a scummy tactic from Activision to get people to play Warzone Mobile, right? Well, eventually the Warzone Mobile devs did fix the game, but by then it's already too late lah. Most people had bad impressions on Warzone Mobile, and they just see it as a poor, unoptimized game that will destroy your phones, and they just didn't want to touch the game anymore, no matter what else happened. And to me, I think it's the most important part of any game: first impressions. I mean, like, you fail that, your game will be doomed, and your game will be known as that doom failure unless you can somehow make a redemption arc or something. Alright, I want to circle back to the content creators I mentioned earlier. Now, I won't say anyone because there are quite a few of them that I've seen this happen during the Warzone mobile controversy. But one thing I realize is that these people are delusional in thinking that the game was the best at the time, and the people who complained or criticized it was a mobile for the game's faults were just fools who cannot afford flagship iPads that they play the games on. I mean, like, you do realize that not everyone is able to afford an iPad, right? I'll just pull out a picture of how much an Apple iPad costs in my country's pricing. Alright. And with that amount of cash, with that same amount of cash, I can kind of get a shit box. I can literally buy a shit box. Look at that. It only costs like what? Almost 4,000. Meanwhile, the iPad Pro cost over almost 5,000. So if I was given 5,000 ringgit, would I rather spend it on an iPad just to play video games, or would I spend it on necessities? Well, I know what I'm going to pick. I'm definitely going for the necessities. I need a car to go to college. I mean, like, an iPad really isn't important to me right now. So the fact that these content creators say that they cannot afford the phones, these high end devices, the iPads that they play on, and therefore they do not have the right to say that the game has faults, the game is bad just because they do not have the same they do not have the same devices that they play on. I just think it's delusional. It's just fucking delusional, right? Not everyone is able to buy a 1,000, 2,000 United States dollars kind of iPad. It's just not happened. Like I said earlier, a lot of people do play on low or mid-end devices, right? But I think there was one that even said that it's running on a full PC engine and in a real console PC game. Right? This isn't like PUBG Mobile, it's made out of Unreal or Unity engine or some crap. And I'm just quoting the line really. And that's the thing. It's running on a PC engine. Therefore it's a PC game originally. Do you really think that the game is going to run well on low end smartphones? That's not happening. So what about this? Has CODM always been a crappy game to us? Right? PUBG Mobile? What about them? Do you think they're all crap games? You see, this just shows me that you can't even trust content creators when it comes to things like this. Because sometimes you don't really know whether they're going to just glaze the game while denying the weaknesses, which is something I do see in gacha games a lot recently. Well, in conclusion, I would just say the Warzone mobile drama was pretty much a good lesson to teach to other companies that if you cannot pander to your main audience, you can't be successful. Like the whole point of Warzone Mobile was that Activision tried to pander to the people that play CODM by saying that the game is better than it, so that eventually they can just break away from Tencent and CODM would have all of the profits to themselves. But they ultimately failed to understand what made CODM successful in the very first place. That you can play COD on a mobile devices without any issues whatsoever. Again, most mobile shooter games that are successful nowadays are well optimized. Like I said, Free Fire, PUBG Mobile, and even Delta Force recently, because Delta Force has been released recently, and I think it's well optimized. Like my crappy phone can actually run it pretty well, right? And ultimately, for games like this, graphics and realistic gameplay isn't even relevant if the game is dog shit, if the game is literally unplayable, then there's no point having all of these oh beautiful graphics, oh stunning gameplay. So I do hope future mobile games will be able to learn from the failure of Warzone Mobile and try not to achieve the same fate. That's about it for me. I'll see you around.